The chamber of the Galactic Council was older than most civilizations. Built into the hollowed heart of a dead moon, it had seen empires rise and fall, species ascend and vanish. Here, under the cold glow of distant suns, the fate of entire galaxies was decided. And on this day, the fate of humanity hung by a thread. The room was silent as Ambassador Elias Vance of Earth walked to the center dais. Every step echoed across the marble floor, each one heavier than the last. He was a tall man, older now, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes were sharp, the eyes of a man who had watched humanity crawl from its cradle into the stars. He bowed his head before the assembly of alien leaders, beings of every shape and size, with skin like crystal, eyes like fire, wings that shimmered with cosmic dust. They stared back with cold curiosity, as if studying a strange creature that had wandered too far from home. "Honored delegates," Elias began, his voice steady, "I come here not as a conqueror but as a neighbor. Humanity seeks only peace, trade, and a place among the stars. We ask for understanding. We ask for friendship." For a heartbeat there was silence, then laughter, harsh, mocking laughter. "They speak of peace," hissed Chancellor Volcra of the Threx Dominion, his 6 eyes narrowing. "And yet they multiply like vermin. In less than 3 centuries, they have colonized more worlds than species twice their age." "They strip planets bare," snarled Admiral Keth of the Oran Compact. "They poison the soil and burn the sky. They consume everything they touch." "They are a threat," said the Speaker of the Council, a towering crystalline being whose voice cut through the room like a blade. "And threats must be contained." Elias' stomach turned at the word. "Contained," he repeated. "We have offered treaties, we have shared technology, knowledge, medicine. We have done nothing but reach out." "Exactly," Volcra spat. "You reach out and then you take, and once you have taken everything, you will reach again. You cannot stop yourselves. It is your nature." The speaker raised a long, glowing hand, silencing the chamber. "Humanity will surrender its colonies beyond Sol. You will dismantle your fleets and withdraw to your home system. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war." A chill swept through Elias. He had feared this outcome, but hoped reason would prevail. "You cannot mean this," he said quietly. "You would destroy an entire species because you fear what we might become." The speaker's crystalline features shifted, almost like a smile. "Yes." The word struck harder than any weapon. Around the chamber, the delegates murmured their approval. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too ambitious. Better to snuff them out now while they were still weak. Elias stood in silence for a long moment. Then he straightened his back and looked each of them in the eye. "We will not comply," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge like sharpened steel. "We will not surrender our children's future. We will not give up the stars." Volcra laughed. "Then you choose death." "No," Elias replied. "We choose freedom." The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The Council had declared humanity a rogue species. Sanctions were imposed. Trade routes were severed, and finally warships began to gather on the edges of human space. At first, humanity tried everything to avoid bloodshed. They sent envoys. They offered compromise. They even proposed joint governance of contested worlds. But the Council would accept nothing less than submission. And when humanity refused, the first shot was fired. It came without warning. A combined fleet from the Oran Compact and the Threx Dominion jumped into orbit over New Kyoto, humanity's largest colony beyond Sol. They gave no demands, issued no warnings. They simply opened fire. Cities vanished in seconds. Billions of lives were lost. Survivors fled into the void, hunted by enemy patrols. And when the bombardment ended, a single message was transmitted to Earth: surrender or die. The message was clear, and it was heard. The United Earth government met in emergency session. The room was filled with silence and grief. Screens showed the burning ruins of New Kyoto. Holomaps tracked enemy fleets massing in multiple sectors. And in that silence, something ancient and terrible stirred within the human spirit. For generations, humanity had fought wars against nature, against each other, against impossible odds. They had faced extinction and clawed their way back from the edge. They had been called violent, reckless, unstoppable, and perhaps they were. But now, for the first time, that unstoppable will was united. President Mara Liu stood before the world, her face hard with resolve. "We came to the stars with open hands," she said, her voice carrying across every screen and speaker. "We offered peace. We offered friendship, and they answered with fire. They wanted us gone, they wanted us broken, but they have made one mistake." She paused, her eyes burning with determination. They thought humanity would kneel. The chamber erupted in applause. Across Earth and its colonies, factories roared to life. Shipyards worked without rest. Scientists turned their brilliance to weapons no alien mind had ever imagined. Soldiers, veterans, farmers, students flooded the recruitment centers. Humanity's war machine, once scattered and uncoordinated, began to rise as one. Far away in the halls of the Galactic Council, the alien delegates watched the humans' frantic preparations and laughed. "They are ants building walls," Admiral Keth scoffed. "We will crush them before they even leave their system." "They do not understand what they are facing," Volcrus sneered. "Our fleets blot out the stars. Our armies have conquered empires older than their sun. They will be ashes before the year ends." But not everyone shared their confidence. Some remembered the stories of Earth's wars, of a species that refused to die no matter how many times it was broken. They remembered how humans had thrived in death worlds, how they had turned every weapon used against them into a tool for victory. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, a whisper began to spread. The Council wanted a fight. They were about to get something far worse. They were about to get oblivion. The night sky over Earth was no longer a canvas of stars. It was fire. Columns of smoke rose into the heavens as enemy bombardments struck cities and shipyards. The ground shook with every explosion, and the oceans boiled where plasma beams struck. The Galactic Council had unleashed its fury. Hundreds of fleets descended upon human space from every direction, crushing colonies, blockading trade routes, and pushing deeper into the Sol system. They called it Operation Final Dawn. Their goal was simple: break humanity's back once and for all. And for a time, it looked like they would succeed. The fall of Proxima Colony was the first great tragedy. The planet had once been a symbol of human expansion, a green world orbiting a red star, home to 10 million settlers. It was reduced to ashes in less than a week. The Council's fleets bombarded it from orbit, targeting power plants, hospitals, and evacuation ships. By the time Earth's fleet arrived, there was nothing left to save. "Do not bother recovering the bodies," said Admiral Krell of the Threx Dominion in a broadcast. "There are none left to bury." The words echoed across human space like a curse. They were meant to break morale. Instead, they forged something far more dangerous: resolve. But resolve could not stop the tide. The colony on Titan fell next. Then the shipyards on Callisto. Even the mighty orbital defenses around Mars were torn apart under relentless assault. Humanity's fleets fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Every victory came at a cost. Every retreat left more civilians behind. The broken sky rained debris, shattered ships, burning satellites, pieces of lives lost forever. Humanity had never known such destruction. In the heart of the chaos, Admiral Ria Santiago stood on the command deck of the dreadnought Vigilance. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice hoarse from days without sleep. "Status report," she demanded. "Casualties on the Mars front exceed 3 million, her tactical officer replied. "We're losing control of orbit. Reinforcements from Europa are delayed. Earth Command is asking for a fallback." Ria stared at the tactical map. Red enemy markers covered the screen, surrounding every human stronghold. Retreat would save lives for now, but every step back gave the Council more ground. "No," she said finally. "We hold, even if it costs us everything, we hold." "But Admiral—" She cut him off. "If Mars falls, Earth is next. If Earth falls, humanity ends. We hold." Her fleet obeyed. They fought like demons, hurling everything they had at the enemy. And for every ship they lost, they took 2 with them. For every city bombarded, they made the attackers pay in blood. But bravery could not rewrite the laws of war. Mars fell, and with it, humanity's last major defensive line. The evacuation of Earth began soon after. Every ship that could fly was repurposed to carry civilians. Families were torn apart. Children were placed on outbound shuttles while their parents stayed behind to fight. Scientists burned their life's work to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. Soldiers swore oaths to defend their home to the last breath. The capital city of Geneva became a fortress. Every building was reinforced. Anti-orbital guns rose from the streets. Civilians were trained to fight with whatever weapons they could hold. It wasn't about victory anymore. It was about survival. President Mara Liu addressed the world from the ruins of the United Nations building. Her face was streaked with ash, but her eyes burned with determination. "They are stronger," she said. "They are older, they are many, but they do not understand us. They think if they break our cities, we will surrender. They think if they slaughter our people, we will give up. But humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not break. If they want to end us, they will have to fight for every inch of ground. They will have to drown in our blood." Her words were broadcast across every channel, reaching soldiers in trenches, pilots in orbit, and refugees fleeing into the void. And in that moment, something shifted. Despair turned into defiance. Fear turned into fury. Humanity might lose the battle, but they would make the galaxy regret ever starting it. The Council, however, believed victory was near. "They are finished," Volcra sneered in a meeting of the War Council. "Their fleets are shattered, their defenses crumble, one final strike and they will beg for mercy." But not everyone agreed. "They do not beg," said Elder Saren of the Ilinari Republic, who had studied humanity's history. "They rise. Every time they are crushed, they rise, and when they rise again, they are stronger." Volcra laughed. "Then let them rise, we will crush them again." He didn't realize the truth of Saren's words, that humanity was already rising. In the ashes of burned cities, new weapons were being tested. On the broken shipyards of Luna, engineers were building ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen, warships powered by unstable dark matter cores, capable of bending space itself. In hidden bunkers beneath Earth's crust, scientists were forging weapons designed not just to kill fleets, but to erase entire systems. Humanity had nothing left to lose, and that made them the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The Council's fleets approached Earth for their final assault. Billions watched from orbit as the night sky burned with enemy fire. Entire continents shook as kinetic strikes rained down. Humanity was on the brink of extinction. And yet in the darkness there was light. A small task force slipped past the enemy blockade. Their mission was simple: to strike back. It was the first step in a plan that would change the course of the war. As the last transmission from Earth went out, a single message was broadcast across the stars. "You wanted a fight, we warned you. What comes next will not be war, it will be oblivion." The skies above Earth were broken. Whole continents lay in ruins, oceans burned, and cities that had once stood for centuries were reduced to dust. The Galactic Council believed the war was over. They believed humanity's spirit had finally been crushed. To them, Earth was a dying ember, a final breath before extinction. But they were wrong. Because beneath the ashes, humanity was not dying. Humanity was transforming. In the underground bunkers of shattered cities, scientists and engineers worked day and night. They no longer spoke of rebuilding. They spoke of vengeance. In hidden shipyards orbiting shattered moons, fleets were not repaired, they were reinvented. New ships, black and silent, were forged from materials the Council had never seen. Weapons once considered too dangerous to exist were now being tested without hesitation. The war had changed humanity. The fear, the grief, the loss, it had forged them into something harder than steel. And they would never be the same again. In a secure chamber beneath the ruined surface of Geneva, the leaders of Earth and its colonies gathered. The air was heavy with silence. Every person in that room had lost someone, a friend, a child, a home. But their grief no longer weakened them. It fueled them. President Mara Liu stood at the head of the table. Her once pristine suit was scorched and torn. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on the table. But when she spoke, her voice carried a strength that silenced the room. "They think we are beaten," she said. "They think this is the end, but this is not the end. This is the moment history will remember, not for our defeat, but for our rebirth." General Ria Santiago leaned forward, her face grim. "Our fleets are scattered. Our colonies are gone. We don't have the numbers to face them head-on." "Then we don't fight them head-on," Mara replied. "We fight them our way." A murmur passed through the room. Everyone knew what she meant. Humanity had never been the strongest, the fastest, or the oldest, but they had always been the most dangerous, because when they were cornered, they changed the rules. Plans were drawn in that chamber, plans that would terrify even the most seasoned admirals of the Galactic Council. First came Operation Black Sun, a project that had been buried deep within Earth's most secret programs. It was a fleet of stealth warships, invisible to sensors, capable of traveling through uncharted wormholes and striking from behind enemy lines. Then came Project Leviathan, a superweapon that bent the very laws of physics, a device that could trigger miniature supernovas inside star systems. It was dangerous, unstable, and had been considered too risky to build. Now it was humanity's best hope. Finally, there was Operation Echo, a plan that would turn the galaxy's own communication networks against them. Spies, hackers, and covert teams were sent deep into enemy space to sabotage fleets, spread false orders, and collapse supply chains. This wasn't war as the Council knew it. This was something darker. This was annihilation. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something unexpected was happening. The brutality of the Council's campaign had not gone unnoticed. Many neutral civilizations, once too afraid to oppose the great powers, were now questioning their actions. Some even began sending covert aid to humanity, supplies, intelligence, even small fleets. And then there were the defectors, alien soldiers who had seen the massacres and refused to continue fighting. Some of them fled to human space, offering their skills and knowledge. Humanity accepted them all. "We fight for survival," Myra told them. "But if you fight beside us, then you fight for something greater, justice." Months passed. Slowly, the balance began to shift. Human ships, once weak and outdated, now struck with terrifying precision. Enemy supply lines vanished. Council fleets disappeared into ambushes that seemed impossible. Starbases exploded without warning, their destruction blamed on ghost fleets no one could detect. Panic spread among the Council's ranks. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Krell shouted during a War Council meeting. "We bombed their worlds, we destroyed their fleets, they should be dead." "They adapt," Elder Saren said quietly. "They learn, they endure, and now they are coming for us." The final phase of humanity's plan began with a whisper, a single transmission broadcast across the galaxy. "This is Earth," the message said. "We gave you peace, you answered with fire, we begged for mercy, you answered with blood. Now you will know the price of your arrogance, we will not stop, we will not forgive, and we will not forget." The message ended with two words that sent chills across every star system. "We are coming." In the darkness of space, the Black Sun fleet slipped out of stealth and into enemy territory. They struck deep, hitting targets the Council thought untouchable: shipyards, command centers, weapons depots. Entire fleets vanished before they could even power up their shields. In the heart of a distant star system, Project Leviathan was tested for the first time. A single blast turned a binary star system into a graveyard of molten rock. Billions of tons of enemy ships were wiped from existence in seconds. And behind enemy lines, Operation Echo tore the Council apart from within. Fleets attacked each other by mistake. Supply convoys were rerouted into traps. Entire armies starved as logistics collapsed. The galaxy had gone to war with humanity, but humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for dominance. On the bridge of the flagship Vigilance, Admiral Rhea watched as another enemy fleet fell to the Black Sun ambush. A grim smile touched her lips. "They thought we would break," she whispered. "Instead, we became unbreakable." The stars burned bright outside the viewport, not with the fire of defeat, but with the light of vengeance. Humanity had risen from the ashes stronger, faster, and far more dangerous than anyone had believed possible. The Council had wanted a war. Now they faced something else entirely. They had woken a force they could never hope to control. They had turned humanity into oblivion. The galaxy had thought humanity broken. Now it trembled as humanity burned its enemies from the stars. Every corner of Council space, from the glittering capital worlds of the Oran Compact to the industrial fortresses of the Threx Dominion, shook under the weight of a war they had never imagined. Humanity's vengeance had begun, and it was swift, merciless, and unstoppable. They called it the Inferno Campaign, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first blow came without warning. In the Helios sector, the Dominion's largest shipyard, a massive orbital complex that had produced warships for centuries, vanished in a burst of white light. The Black Sun fleet, long thought to be a myth, had struck. They emerged from the void, cloaked and silent, unleashing a storm of railgun slugs and plasma torpedoes before disappearing again into hyperspace. Over 100 enemy warships were reduced to slag. 2 weeks later, the Oran Command Center on Rithkar Prime exploded from within. Intelligence teams working under Operation Echo had infiltrated the planet's defense network and turned its planetary shields inward. The result was catastrophic: a chain reaction that shattered the capital into fire and rubble. Billions died in minutes. And humanity did not stop. One by one, the Council's strongholds fell. Massive dreadnoughts, once symbols of fear, were ambushed and torn apart by swarms of smaller, faster human vessels. Entire fleets vanished into traps carefully laid by human tacticians who had studied every detail of their enemies' battle doctrine. In one battle near the Zalan Rift, Admiral Ria Santiago led a fleet of only 60 ships against 300 Council vessels. The odds were hopeless, or so the enemy believed, but Ria had a plan. "Let them think we're retreating," she ordered. The human ships fell back, drawing the enemy into the rift's unstable gravity fields. The pursuing fleets broke formation, their shields weakened by gravitational stress. That was when Ria struck. Hidden strike groups emerged from the shadows, cutting through the enemy lines with precision strikes. By the time the battle ended, only 20 Council ships remained. Humanity's fleet, bloodied but victorious, flew home to the cheers of billions. But humanity's wrath was not only in the stars. On worlds once enslaved or occupied by the Council, resistance movements rose up, emboldened by Earth's resurgence. Weapons and supplies flowed from hidden human outposts. Advisors trained rebels in guerrilla tactics. Entire planetary governments collapsed under the weight of coordinated uprisings. For centuries, the Council had ruled through fear. Now fear turned against them. "They are everywhere," one Oran general whispered. "They strike and vanish. Our fleets are blind. Our armies fight ghosts." Across the galaxy, Council leaders met in frantic emergency sessions. The war they had started, the war they believed would be over in weeks, had become a nightmare. "They are tearing our empire apart," Admiral Krell snarled. "We must launch a full-scale offensive, crush their homeworld before they destroy us." "Fool," shouted Elder Saren. "Every time we strike, they come back stronger. Every time we kill one of them, 10 more rise. They are not a people anymore, they are a storm." And the storm was still gathering strength. In the hidden laboratories beneath Luna, Project Leviathan had been completed. Humanity now possessed weapons capable of triggering chain reactions inside stars, turning suns into supernovae. These weapons were forbidden by every galactic treaty, considered too monstrous to use. But humanity no longer cared about treaties. "They called us savages," President Mara Liu said, standing before a new fleet ready to launch. "They called us reckless. They said we were too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. They were right. We are dangerous to tyrants, to conquerors, to those who believe they can erase us, and we will not stop until they understand." The Council's response came in the form of Operation Iron Fist, the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Over 1,000 warships gathered in the Vega sector, preparing for a final push toward Earth. It was meant to be overwhelming, decisive, a blow that would shatter humanity's resistance forever. It became a massacre. Human intelligence had tracked every movement of the enemy fleet. When the Council Armada jumped into Vega space, they found themselves surrounded. Hidden human fleets emerged from subspace on all sides. Planetary defense platforms activated, launching waves of supercharged rail slugs. And then came the final blow, a Leviathan warhead detonated inside the system's sun. The resulting supernova consumed everything. Over 800 Council ships were vaporized, the rest scattered, broken, and leaderless. The galaxy fell silent. News of Vega spread faster than light. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Council feared for its survival. Civilizations that had once mocked humanity now begged for peace. Whole worlds rose in rebellion, believing the Council's age of dominance was finally over. And still, humanity did not stop. "We offered peace," Admiral Ria told her officers aboard the Vigilance. "They chose war. We asked for coexistence. They chose genocide. Now they will learn what it means to fight a species that never surrenders. We will go to their worlds. We will burn their fleets. We will break their thrones." The order was given. Across the galaxy, humanity's fleets advanced, unstoppable, relentless, and merciless. The empires that had once called them primitive now fled before their wrath. Entire star systems were liberated or annihilated. The balance of power that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was shattered beyond repair. But even amid the flames, humanity did not forget. They remembered the children lost on New Kyoto, the families buried beneath the rubble of Mars, the oceans that boiled and the skis that burned. Every shot fired, every ship destroyed, every world liberated, all of it was for them. The Council had wanted a fight. They had expected resistance, defiance, even stubborn survival. What they received instead was a force beyond their darkest nightmares, a firestorm that consumed empires, erased fleets, and turned conquerors into dust. And in the heart of that firestorm, humanity stood unbroken. The galaxy had never known fear like this. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled with absolute power. Their fleets enforced order, their armies crushed rebellions, their laws shaped civilizations. They believed themselves untouchable gods among the stars. But now those same stars burned with the fires of human vengeance. Their fleets were gone, their armies broken, their laws meaningless. The empires that had once ruled half the galaxy were now fighting for their survival. The storm they had started had become unstoppable. Humanity was no longer defending itself. Humanity was erasing them. The first empire to fall was the Oran Compact. Once proud and powerful, their fleets had been shattered in the Vega supernova. What remained of their forces retreated to their home system, building massive defensive rings and planetary shields. They believed they could hold out long enough to negotiate. They were wrong. The Black Sun fleet arrived first. Silent and invisible, it bypassed their perimeter defenses and crippled their orbital platforms in a single night. Then the main fleet came, thousands of human warships emerging from hyperspace like a storm. The Oran Navy tried to resist, but it was like throwing stones at a hurricane. For 3 days, the battle raged. On the 4th day, the capital of Oran Prime surrendered. Its leaders knelt before human soldiers, their faces pale and trembling. Mercy, they begged. We were following orders, it was the Council's decision. Admiral Ria Santiago stood before them, her uniform stained with the ashes of war. Her voice was quiet but colder than the void. New Kyoto begged too. The Oran Compact ceased to exist. Next came the Threx Dominion, the empire that had spearheaded the genocide against humanity. Their warlord, Chancellor Volcra, had sworn he would never surrender, that humans would die before they ever set foot on Threx soil. He had built fleets of dreadnoughts and fortified every planet in his system. But he had underestimated how far humanity was willing to go. Operation Leviathan's Wrath began with a single strike. A dark matter warhead detonated inside the Threx binary star, destabilizing the system and triggering catastrophic solar flares. Entire shipyards were vaporized. Energy grids collapsed. Chaos spread across the Dominion before a single human ship arrived. Then the invasion began. It wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. Human marines descended onto Threx worlds like vengeful spirits, cutting through resistance with brutal efficiency. Cities that had once mocked humanity now burned. Statues of Volcra were torn down and ground into dust. And at last, in the throne room of the Threx capital, Admiral Ria confronted the warlord himself. "You should have stayed away from our world," she said. Volcra spat in defiance. "We are the masters of the stars, you are nothing." Ria raised her sidearm and looked him dead in the eyes. "Then fear nothing." The shot echoed across the hall. With it, the Dominion fell. News of the Dominion's fall shook the galaxy to its core. Entire civilizations surrendered without a fight. Some begged for treaties. Others dissolved their governments and offered themselves to human protection. What had begun as a desperate war for survival had now become a war of conquest, and humanity was winning. But Earth's leaders faced a difficult question. How far would they go? How much destruction was too much? Was this justice or revenge? President Mara Liu gathered her war council in the ruins of the former council capital. Around the table sat generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats. All of them had sacrificed everything for victory. "We have broken their fleets," she said. "We have crushed their armies. The galaxy is ours to shape. But we must decide, do we stop here or do we finish what they started?" Admiral Ria's face was hard. "If we stop now, they will rebuild. In a century, they'll try again, and next time they won't underestimate us." General Haldane leaned forward. "But if we destroy them completely, we become the very monsters we fought against." The room fell silent. For the first time since the war began, humanity faced an enemy far more dangerous than any alien fleet, its own wrath. Meanwhile, resistance within the Council's core worlds collapsed. Planet after planet declared independence. Species once enslaved by the great powers rose up and joined humanity's cause. The balance of power that had existed for thousands of years was gone. In its place was a new order, one forged not by fear but by fire. On the ashes of the council's palace, a new banner was raised. It bore a simple symbol, a stylized human hand reaching for the stars. Beneath it were the words that would become a promise and a warning. Never again. Yet even as the galaxy bowed, humanity's leaders knew the war was not truly over. The Council's remnants still lurked in distant corners of space. Rogue admirals refused to surrender. And deep in the unknown regions, whispers spoke of an ancient fleet, a final weapon hidden for centuries, waiting for the right moment to strike. Humanity prepared for that too. New fleets were built, stronger than any before. Planetary defenses were fortified, and for the first time, humanity stood at the center of galactic power. But victory had changed them. They were no longer the hopeful explorers who had reached for the stars with open hands. They were something else now, something harder, colder, more dangerous. The galaxy had taught humanity one lesson above all others. Mercy is wasted on those who would burn your home. And humanity would never forget it. On the bridge of the Vigilance, Admiral Rhea stared out at a sky once filled with enemies. Now only scattered wreckage floated among the stars. "They wanted a fight," she whispered. "We gave them oblivion." She turned away from the viewport and walked toward the command chair. The war was nearly over. Soon, humanity would decide what the future looked like. But one thing was certain, the galaxy would never again look at Earth as weak. They had come to destroy humanity. Instead, they had awakened its fury. And once unleashed, that fury could never be contained. The war was over. For the first time in centuries, the stars were silent. No fleets clashed in the void. No worlds burned beneath plasma fire. The empires that had once ruled the galaxy were gone, their ships shattered, their armies scattered, their thrones empty. And at the center of it all stood humanity, bruised and scarred but unbroken. The cost of victory was carved into the soul of every human being. Cities on Earth lay in ruins. Entire colonies had vanished under enemy bombardment. Billions were gone, names now written only on memorial walls scattered across the galaxy. Humanity had won, yes, but the price was almost too much to bear. The silence that followed the war felt heavy, almost unnatural. For generations, the galaxy had known only conflict and conquest. Now there was only stillness, the quiet breath after a scream. On Earth, the skies were once again clear. The fires that had consumed the cities were gone, replaced by the slow hum of reconstruction. Families returned to the ruins of their homes, planting gardens where craters had once been. Children laughed in the streets that had once echoed with the footsteps of soldiers. Life, stubborn and unyielding, began to bloom again. President Mara Liu stood on the balcony of the rebuilt United Earth Council building, gazing at the horizon. The land below was scarred but alive, a mirror of humanity itself. She felt the weight of every life lost pressing down on her shoulders. "They called us dangerous," she whispered, "and they were right." Her chief advisor, Alina Tran, stepped beside her. "They started this war, they would have wiped us out." Mara nodded. "I know, but now the galaxy is ours to shape, and what we do next will decide whether we become monsters or something greater." The question was on everyone's mind: what now? With the Council gone, humanity was the dominant power. No other species could challenge their fleets or match their weapons. Some wanted to seize this chance to build an empire that would last 1,000 years, to conquer the galaxy that had once tried to destroy them. But others argued for peace. They had seen enough of death, enough of hatred. They believed humanity could lead not through fear, but through example. The debate reached its peak in the Great Assembly. A new galactic congress formed in the ruins of the old council. Delegates from hundreds of species, once enemies, now stood together under the banner of survival. Some came in fear, some in hope, but all knew one truth: humanity now held the future in its hands. "Will you rule us?" asked Vethler, a representative of the defeated Orin people. "Will you crush us as we tried to crush you?" Mara rose from her seat, the chamber silent as her words echoed across the hall. "No," she said firmly. "We will not be the monsters you feared. We will not burn worlds or enslave species, but we will never allow what happened to us to happen again. We will build something new, not an empire of chains, but an alliance of strength. And if anyone threatens peace again, we will be there." There was no cheering, only quiet nods. The galaxy understood the weight of her words. Humanity was not promising tyranny, they were promising protection and judgment. In the months that followed, humanity led the formation of the Galactic Union, a coalition built on equality and mutual defense. Old enemies joined hands, bound together by the memory of the horrors they had unleashed. Laws were written, treaties signed, and new borders drawn, not to divide, but to unite. Humanity did not forget its enemies, but it did not destroy them. Instead, it offered them a choice: rebuild and cooperate or be left behind. Most chose the former. Some refused and were quietly dealt with. Slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened. Colonies once destroyed were rebuilt with help from dozens of species working side by side. Children born after the war grew up not knowing hatred, but curiosity, not dreaming of conquest, but of exploration. The scars of the past would never fully fade, but they became reminders, lessons carved into the memory of the stars. Admiral Ria Santiago stood alone on the bridge of the Vigilance, now docked above Earth. The ship that had once been the tip of humanity's spear was now a symbol of peace, its guns silent, its hull marked with the names of fallen comrades. She looked out at the blue planet below and exhaled. "It's over," she whispered, though part of her still didn't believe it. "It's never truly over," said a voice behind her. It was General Haldane, older now, walking with a cane. "There will always be another threat, another enemy." "Then we'll be ready," Ria replied. He smiled faintly. "We always are." Years later, children across the galaxy would learn the story of the war, how the mighty council tried to destroy humanity, and how humanity rose from the ashes to reshape the stars. They would hear of the Black Sun Fleet, the Leviathan Project, the battles that turned night into day. But more than that, they would learn the lesson humanity had taught the universe. Never underestimate those who refuse to die. And yet, even in this new era of peace, humanity did not grow complacent. In secret shipyards hidden deep within uncharted systems, new fleets were constructed. Advanced weapons were tested, not for conquest, but for deterrence. Humanity had learned a harsh truth: peace was not given, it was protected. They would never again be caught unprepared. They would never again kneel before anyone. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the rebuilt city of New Kyoto, Mara Liu walked through a quiet memorial garden. Thousands of names were etched into the walls: soldiers, scientists, civilians, people who had given everything so that humanity could live. She stopped before one inscription, touching the cold stone. "We fought not because we hated them, we fought because we loved what we had." Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of pride. The galaxy had wanted a fight. They had unleashed humanity's fury, and now, in the silence after the storm, they understood what that meant. Humanity was not just another species. Humanity was a force of nature, one that could burn worlds or build them, one that could destroy or protect. The choice had always been theirs. And this time, humanity chose to build.